Hello everyone, and welcome back to another review. As always, I'm Captain Sedaris, and I'm joined by my good friend Seven Saturn.
Hi guys.
And joining us today is Shark93, co-founder of the Battlefield 2 community Lost Soldiers.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me.
Before we start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you?
I'm an Italian gamer who started playing Battlefield 2 back in 2015, and I am the co-founder of a Battlefield 2 community who started in 2016 with another fellow gamer, friend of mine. In my private life, I am a software developer, and in the virtual life, I manage this Battlefield 2 community since 2016.
And when did you buy the game?
I actually didn't buy the game because when I started playing it, the game was already shut down. The game was shut down in 2014 with the GameSpy shutdown. Many other games were shut down at that time. And so during those years, I was playing Battlefield Play for Free, which was another Battlefield title online, and it was free to play, and it was developed by a studio owned by EA, but it was like a sub studio. But then that game also got shut down later that year, and so I was looking for alternatives, and some friends of mine told me about Battlefield 2 and the fact that it was being revived by the community. So that's when I picked up the game. I didn't own it previously. I didn't play it back when it was officially supported, let's say. I picked it up later on when the community revived it.
Okay, I see. So a more recent addition to the Battlefield 2 community. As you can see in the background, we have a look at Battlefield 2. It's a game from 2005. I guess every player who lives even under a rock knows about this game. It's basically a team shooter. Unlike modern Battlefield games, it doesn't include a single player campaign, and in it you can choose one of 7 classes: Assault, Anti-Tank, Medic, Engineer, Support, Special Forces, and Sniper. For the creation of the game, DICE hired Trauma Studios, the creators behind the epic Battlefield 1942 mod Desert Combat. In November of 2005, the game got an expansion pack with new maps, vehicles, weapons, and items like a night vision, a grappling hook, tactical grenades, and a gas mask. Then in 2006 came the big community outcry. 2 booster packs with only a few new weapons, vehicles, and only 3 new maps for each booster pack. Nowadays we are used to get mini updates and pay $10 for it, but back then it was of course a scandal. Until 2009 the game got many different sized patches. The last patch was 1.5, which included many different maps, bot support for the multiplayer, an infantry only mode, and something which made the community very happy. The entire content of the booster packs was included for free. Like Shark already mentioned, in 2014 GameSpy shut down all the master servers. In the same year the community stepped up and the Battlefield Revive project and the Battlefield 2 hub was born. In 2017 EA decided that the Battlefield Revive project was too big with nearly 1 million users and the ability to download the game. So EA forced the shutdown with a lawsuit. But luckily we still have the Battlefield 2 hub. So guys, this would be what I have about the history of the game. Would you like to add anything to it?
Like I said, I didn't play it back then, so I did not witness, the updates, the patches, the booster packs coming out. I enjoyed the product. At the end of the day, this is a product by a studio when it was fully finished and polished, let's say. So the content was already out there and there was no more develop work on this project. So I know from some past experiences of other people that some patches introduced some bugs or fixed other things, or there were behaviors in the game that people would exploit that got later on patched. All of that stuff I didn't get to experience because I only played the game on the last update. I know that many people actually enjoy the version 1.0 of the game, the first release. There's many fans, obviously, that played it at release that would like to be able to still play. I'm not sure if it's version 1.5 or the demo that came out. There's a there's a fan base of those times, because obviously the game was much different than what it is today. We are on the version 1.5. That's the last patch number that got released, and so the game is much more different than the start. And one more thing, if there are recently I've seen some trailers of the game, some original trailers, and you can see many assets that didn't make it into the game, like mortar strikes or some vehicles that they were filmed in cinematic trailers, but they were cut from the final product. They didn't make it. So that's also part of the history that I didn't get to see, but now the community is bringing back videos and knowledge and keeping the game alive in 2020, which is amazing.
What I always found interesting about Battlefield 2 is that the demo servers were still up and running until the end of GameSpy. There was a small community who played even 9 years after the release the demo version of the game, which only was one map, which always was so, why are you doing this? The game is now for free, you could play it for nothing, but you still play this?
Yeah, I'm not sure what is the reason. Maybe some different damage models or weapons. I have no idea. But there's, like I said, yeah. Now I'm happy that you confirm my my statements. There are definitely many that are looking forward to play the demo version again. I'm not aware if those groups still exist, but there's definitely people out there that really enjoy that version of the game, despite it was only one map, like you said.
I tried to look for the servers, but I couldn't find them, so I guess they are shut down now in 2020.
Yes, either they are shut down or it's hard to find them. You see, with Battlefield 2, over the past years, there have been many projects that revived the game. It wasn't only BF2 Revive and BF2 Hub. Over the years, a couple of other projects popped up and tried to, build a master server, build a community, but they didn't last very long. There's also Game Ranger, for example, that has been supporting old games for a long time. Those are completely different communities, and lately there has also been a new group of developers who wanted to revive Battlefield Play for Free and Battlefield Heroes. Those are the games that I used to play before 2014, and they also tried Battlefield 2. They brought it up, but it's not really an easy task to get everything running smoothly. It's quite a challenge, and the second challenge is to bring the players on board, to keep them to, bringing new players to this game is not very easy. The game is a little bit unforgiving for newcomers. It's a little bit hard, but maybe that's why the people that have been playing it for a while, maybe that's why they love it, because it's hard game. It's not simple shooter or easy to get used to, like maybe some modern games which are more friendly for casual players. This is more for hardcore players, I would say.
Well, I'm not sure if this is the only reason. We experience this in other communities as well. This game is old and it's kind of nice, and people who still play it, of course, find it nice, but finding new players for older games sometimes complicated. I mean, you can show someone what the features are and they maybe, looks nice, but when you actually ask them, want to play, then, well, things go sideways somehow. Maybe this isn't too different for the Battlefield 2 game itself, but as someone who didn't play it a lot, just played it a few rounds, I think, of course, it might also be true that this is about the learning curvature, which is really steep, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. In fact, I believe most of the new players that come to the platform are looking for a free shooter game that they can play for free, obviously, and that has not high requirements for their computers. Battlefield 2 was made in 2005, so at the time the computers were not as powerful as today. So the requirements to run the game are quite low. So a low-end PC can handle the game. Incidentally, the game runs better on old hardware than it does on modern computers. And there's some quirks about this that I can say later. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that yes, the learning curve is difficult, and so this is why new players, if they are alone, if they don't have maybe a friend to explain to them, I noticed that new players drop the game quite early. After a few hours or days of trying, if they do not get better, most players of Battlefield 2 that I see, most new players that approach the game, they drop it and move to something else. So that's also another difficult thing. Keeping the new players, it's a little bit hard as well.
I believe that this is quite normal, especially in the situation where you have a lot of veterans around. I mean,
Correct.
I don't know if you have played Unreal Tournament 2004 online. When the game was new, I didn't had the hardware to do so, so I kind of got there really, really late. And if you go on a public server today as a noob, well, it's not fun at all, because you barely get 3 steps ahead and are killed already. And I believe this goes for the Battlefield 2 as well. There are many veterans, really good players, and I think that is the problem. You would need kind of a noob server where those really good players tend not to go to, just to give the game a chance for new players. Because let's face it, if you have a lot of really, really good opponents, then no game is really fun, because you will lose quite a lot, and this goes for pretty much every game, I believe.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. This is one of the reasons. Battlefield 2 does not have any advanced matchmaking, and inside the game during a round there is no smart balance in terms of strength or your rank. It's all numbers of players, and that's about it. The skill is not something that is valued by the game itself. There is no mechanic that will balance the round based on skill. This is something that the in-game administrator must do. So oftentimes the matches can be unbalanced. If there is a very strong team and the opponent team has new players, newcomers, then it can be really frustrating to play against that type of situation.
Well, that's funny, because the captain and I had this discussion, I believe, yesterday, where we were also thinking about, well, how do modern games cope with the situation? I mean, you have titles like the Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or you have games like StarCraft 2, which have a ladder system where you are measured kind of in your skills, and you only get opponents that are roughly around your own playing level. But the fact of the matter is, even in those games, it isn't always like, you get really fitting opponents here. So I believe this is a difficult task. Yeah, of course, the old games didn't have it at all. And of course, this doesn't really make it better at all, of course. But I don't think that there is a good solution up to now. I believe every of those leveling systems, those scaling numbers which tell how good a player is, all of them somehow fail to do a really, really good job at that.
What I also noticed when we played the last few days was that there are many empty servers, or let's say the other way, there are servers who look populated, say 20 or 15 players. You connect and you see only bots and they are all dead. Do you maybe know why this is, Shark?
Yes, I know why you have this situation, and it's pretty common in Battlefield 2. I'll try to explain it quickly. Basically, in Battlefield 2, by default, a 64-player server, in order to start the match, so to have statistics count, so for the match to go live, you need 8 players on the server. You need 8 humans to connect. Until you reach 8, you will see wait until 7 more players join. If you don't reach that number, the match will be in pre-game mode. So an official server with a ranking will not, you will not be able to play. Basically, I think there are no flags to capture. You cannot do anything. The match is not live. It's a pre-game, like a lobby, so you wait for other players. But in 2020, unfortunately, there are not as many players as back in 2005 and so forth. And so what happens is that server owners will put they're not called bots. The technical term is fake client. So a fake player that you put in the server, and the main reason is to be able to bypass this 8 minimum player requirement, so that the match can be live. I believe part of this reason back in the day was for stats padding, so joining a server with a friend, or I don't know, with a second computer and killing the other player over and over, for example. So that's the reason why. And if we look back at the history of Battlefield 2 revived by the community, during BF2 Revive, which was the biggest revival project that existed, at first they kept the minimum player with 8 as default, and so we had the fake clients. But then they decided that every official server, official ranked server, would be able to start the match with just 2 players. So they modified the server files for everyone in the ranked list, and this is when they banished the fake clients, so that you would get actual player counts on the servers without bloated numbers or fake numbers. Unfortunately, this nowadays this is a little bit of a problem for newcomers, because they do not know all this history. They do not know that these are fake players, and certainly there are communities who try to help guests and newcomers by giving to these fake clients some names like the rules of the server, or they call them bot number 1, bot number 2. So when you join, you see, okay, maybe this is not a player, maybe ban appeal at forum is not a player, or the name of the server or features of the servers. That's what we have in my community. Other communities, unfortunately, are a little, I don't know the word in English, but they deceive new players, like you just told me a few moments ago, and they give actual player names to these bots, like you call them, or even admin names, which is even worse. So the newcomer, when he browses the server list, he sees 20 out of 64. He says, oh, there's 20 people in the server, let's join. He comes in, he sees player names and even admin names, because they have a clan tag, but nobody spawns, because those are fake clients. You recognize them because they have a ping of 0. They're not actual players, they are fake clients. So that's basically the story behind this. In BF2 Hub, the ranked servers still have the 8 minimum player requirement. So that's the main reason why we have to have this fake player count in the server.
It's really sad that the game from 2005 doesn't include a feature where bots can populate a multiplayer server, and as soon as a real human player comes, one of the bots is leaving. Many games from before that could do that.
Yeah, like the Quake 3 derived games, they had the spotmin players where you said, well, every team should have maybe, say, at least 3 players, and if people joined, then bots tend to drop out after a while, and so you end up with humans against bots up to the point where you have only human players. I find this idea quite nice, actually. Don't know why they didn't include it in Battlefield 2. It would have been nice.
But with bots, you mean actual soldiers that spawn and behave with like AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we call them fake clients. A bot in Battlefield 2 is AI bot in the cooperative mode. You have bots that spawn with you and against you, and you fight against bots. That's what we call bot. Fake client instead is like a player, but it doesn't spawn. It's only for the player number and to...
it doesn't actually act anything, I know.
Yeah, and to make the server think that there are players, so that the match goes live. And when actual humans join, they can start fighting. Even with 2 people, they can start fighting in the server, capture the flags, kill each other, and their points will count. Obviously, sometimes this leads to problems. For example, stats padding. Can you believe it or not, in 2020, of course, I am an administrator, so I see it on my servers, there is still people that pad their stat. It's embarrassing. And if only that was the only problem we had. There's much more behind the scenes. I'm not sure if I should spoil the magic behind Battlefield 2, but like in any game, it's not always positive things. There are pros and cons to the community and to the server management and so forth.
Talking about the community, what can you tell us about your community, Lost Soldiers?
So Lost Soldiers is a community that was founded in the 2016 with the BF2 Revive or Battlelog with my friend Starline, who I met on that revival platform at the time. So we decided to create a community with a focus on teamwork and sharing good emotions, good memories. We like to say that we are not a clan, we are a community. We don't have requirements like you have to have minimum KD of 2, 3 or accuracy of 30% and above. No, that's not how we operate. That's not what we're looking for. We look for team play and playing together, enjoy the game together. So that's why we prefer to call ourselves community and not a clan. So we were born back then. We started with the BF2 Revive, and we were pretty popular back in the day because during that era there were many more players than we see today in BF2 Hub. We had 5 servers back in the day, and we still have 5 in 2020. But over the years we tried the different settings, different maps, and I would say the only iconic server that still stands today is Wake Island because it's the favorite of the founder of the community, and also Gulf of Oman. Those are the iconic maps that we feel most of the players enjoy. And Strike at Karkand, but that server we don't have it anymore since a little while.
And how did you decide to publish this game again and post it on Reddit?
Well, you see, what I've always been doing when I started Battlefield 2, when I started playing and I joined the Revive forums, was helping people. I enjoy fixing client-side problems of the game, and so that's what I've been doing basically from day one on the forums back in the day. After a while, the staff actually noticed my my will to help people effortlessly, basically every day. That was like my hobby, and they actually made me a moderator of the forum, which I really enjoyed. I must say that I really love forums, and especially the support categories of the forum. This is also what I did back in Battlefield Play for Free in the forums, to the point where many used to call me Shark, the forum hero. That was my nickname back then. So, like I said, I like to help people. So there's a problem with Battlefield 2, which is the installation. In 2020, the computers are not the same that there were before. Technologies have been dropped by Microsoft. The frameworks needed for the game to run are old, deprecated. They do not come anymore with newer Windows operating systems. And so the more time passes, the more it's challenging sometimes to get the game installed and running properly. Admin privileges, compatibility, modes, glitches, quirks that only experienced helpers know come into play. So with another Revive moderator, we decided to create a solution for people looking forward to enjoy the game again and install it effortlessly. So that's why we publish instructions to get the game without many problems, because unfortunately there are many sources where you can get the game from. The game is not being sold anymore on any official platform. It has been pulled from every official store. The only way to actually purchase it is through a reseller, a third party, and oftentimes it is a used copy. But the thing is, you get a physical copy and you get a license code. The problem is that those licenses had value when GameSpy was online, when GameSpy was validating that license as valid, purchased. With GameSpy going down, all those statistics, all that data is gone. So the game is not being sold anymore, and the keys that you can find or purchase from resellers do not have any real value today. So that's why we decided to try to address this problem, and also to fix the problem where, like we said in the beginning, it's hard to get newcomers to join. It's hard to get them to stay, but if you fail to get the game installed and running, then you have already lost in the first first place. First, you need to let them have the game installed without problems. If they install from random websites, they will have problems. And then they join, obviously, the BF2 Hub Discord, where I am with the PVT Stand On, the other fellow moderator that is still there, and we need to help them fix these problems. That's why we decided to publish these instructions and be active in the Battlefield 2 subreddit, for example. In many comments I see people saying, oh, I would really love to get back. Oh, how can you play this game? Many do not know that the game is still playable, that it has been revived and it's kept alive by the community. So that's kind of my job, basically, in the online community of Battlefield 2.
Do you fear any consequences of putting it online?
Well, the problem that we had back then in Revive was that, well, in my opinion, the community got very, very big. Especially in the last year, the team decided to revive another game which was shut down much more recently, and this created a lot of media attention, and many users poured into the platform. And so that's when I think EA started to notice the project and decided to take action. If I can put a little notice, it's not entirely EA's fault, actually, that they didn't issue a lawsuit. They issued a DMCA takedown letter, but what was written in the letter was that the community had to stop providing the game and stopped using the logos of this new game that the team was reviving at the time. They didn't really mention the backend services, the statistics, rankings. All the infrastructure was not part of the problem. So that gives me the idea that if this is not something that skyrockets to millions of users, then EA will not mind about it. So that's what I have been seeing in the past. Basically, the problems seem to arise when you scale up to 4 zeros or 5 zeros, something like that. Until then, there's not going to be problems by EA.
Interesting. I didn't know that the multiplayer side of the Revive network wasn't a problem, only the newer games and the logo.
Did anyone ever try to approach them on that matter? I mean, I believe there are some games where the community created patches and stuff like that and ran a infrastructure like that, but in many cases the actual problem really is getting the game itself. And today there are platforms like Good Old Games where older games are still obtainable completely legally. And did anyone ever try to approach GOG or EA themselves, maybe making this game available once again?
Well, as far as I am aware, no. I haven't heard of this kind of activity before. Maybe since I didn't join the revival in the early months, let's say, perhaps back then something was attempted, but I'm not sure, and personally I have never heard of this kind of activity with Battlefield 2. No, I do not have any recollection of knowledge of this being attempted, and it's actually what you say makes sense. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure that it would work. I've been contacted over the years by other people looking to revive other games that were shut down, just like Battlefield 2 was. And sometimes they told me they contacted the actual legal department of EA and they wanted to purchase the rights of the game, but they didn't want to give them anything. It's a different solution, though. It's not the same example that you said.
It's a different approach.
Yeah, different approach. I'm not familiar with the approach that you mentioned, actually.
Would be maybe one way out of this dilemma. I mean, of course, it is not easy for any publisher to run a game indefinitely. That's quite clear. So they will have to make money in some way. But when you look at GOG, those guys actually still fix problems with older games and have the license to, actually sell the licenses to players. And I believe this model works quite well. And I'm not sure if anyone ever tried approaching EA in such a fashion. You must always think from the other side, what is in for EA? I can completely understand why they wouldn't want to give up anything they created, any content, any licensing or kind of this material, And of course, I wouldn't say it would be very likely that they would agree on anything of that. But if you would say, well, guys, you could still make money with this game, and maybe with even only a little effort, maybe they would be interested. I'm not sure about this. I cannot say, but it would be worth a try.
Especially if you have a project like the Battlefield Revive project with nearly 1 million users, which is a huge number. So at least there's an interest in the community for this game.
Yes, during Revive there were many players. That number, I believe, is the total number of users that ever registered to the platform. But during the last years of Revive, we counted around 5,000 daily players. So over 24 hours, you would get around 5,000 logins. And so the servers were very, very populated. There were many servers, but also many players. Nowadays, instead, after the shutdown of Revive, there are still a number of servers, but unfortunately player base is much lower because many players did not know that BF2 Hub was actually always available since 2014. They thought, oh, BF2 Revive has been shut down, so I will not be able to play the game anymore. And so they left and they played something else. So you mentioned there are many empty servers because the player base now is very low. At this point in time, maybe this approach, this idea that you told me, is not much feasible. It's not worth a try, I'm afraid. It could be, well, that's a bit harsh to say that it is not worth a try, because if you do it correctly, if you get the best case scenario, like Saturn said, and supposedly you get it on GOG, maybe you get a chance to actually revive the game again and ignite the player base. But I am afraid it's a little bit of a utopic discussion. I'm afraid that it is unlikely to happen.
Yeah, especially since EA is very strict with the Battlefield franchise. They hold it very tightly to them. But you also try to increase the population of the game by doing events. What kind of events do you plan in the future, and what did you do?
Oh, thank you very much for asking me this question. In fact, since 2019, we have started to organize some public events and also tournaments, which is another thing that quite good in Battlefield 2. The fact that after all these years, you still have tournaments, you still have competitive players. This is an important topic that maybe we can explore later if you want to make a note to it. So what events do we do? Okay, so the first events that we started in the second half of 2019 was a tank battle event where basically the focus is driving heavy armored vehicles and fighting in the tank, repairing, fighting against other groups of tanks, and that was very funny. That was the first event that we did. And then other events that we did during Halloween, we did an event with a zombie modification, which is Omnicide, classic Battlefield 2 modification. And during Christmas we did an event on Christmas themed map, winter maps, so with snow, and there was a special modification with the different HUD and different weapons, all this winter theme. Then at the end of 2019 we organized a dogfight tournament, so 1v1 in Jet, which is again another gem in Battlefield 2. The dogfight community is still alive and I am part of it as well. So we organized a tournament. Every pilot from all over the world was invited to play, and this was very big and important event because it hasn't been done in 10 years as far as I'm aware. Dogfight, specifically dogfight tournament. It lasted for more than 3 months, and we had 36 contestants, and we still have many media of those matches. We have streams, videos, and a lot of good memories about it. After this event, we decided to do a dogfight party on a custom map that one of our members from Lost Soldiers has created, which is based on the Italian Alps. So you have an actual Battlefield 2 map with texture taken by aerial photographs and telemetry from the actual Italian mountains, and we decided to do a party in there with different jets. It was very funny. We also had different game modes in that map, always having fun, following each other, doing stunts and acrobatic flights. To finish, another big part of our community is Special Forces, which is the only official expansions pack of the game with additional weapons and maps and vehicles. And we decided to do some events on this kind of expansion. For example, sniper only event where everyone is sniper, or infantry only event where you play the Special Forces maps but without any vehicles, only with infantry. And those were pretty funny and competitive events. I would say it was very hard to survive, but it was really funny. So if you want to check out those events, you can visit our forum at lost-soldiers.org/events. If you visit this link, you will be redirected to the forum topic where I list all our past events and the upcoming ones. So there you will find all the events that I may have missed in this few minutes.
Definitely. I will check it out and also include it into the video. And what are your next plans for this year?
Well, we have this year, we have started a new server, which is Dragon Valley 24/7. Regarding future plans, well, surviving for one, because obviously hosting the servers and the auto admin and the voice servers, the website, they all have a cost. So most of the communities, most of the Battlefield 2 communities rely on donations to survive. So if the players do not donate, then we will have a hard time surviving in the long run. So our objective is to, first of all, survive in the long run and be able to stay alive as much as we can and offer the services to the players as long as possible and enjoy Battlefield 2. Other specific plans, well, I would say host events. That's something, like I said, we picked it up in 2019 and we find out that it's very good to meet new players and new people interested to support the community and having fun in general, because you get to play different modes or maps that maybe are not very popular, but since it's an event and everybody is there, you will get perhaps a full server enjoying that specific map, or you create different bonds with the people that you do not know about. You can know many new people, so that's our plan for the future, is to grow possibly and to host events and have fun with the player base and not let it die. We want to support Battlefield 2 as long as possible.
You mentioned the cost of maintaining servers. Just out of curiosity, how much is it, let's say, for a year? What amount of money is really required to do this? I have no idea.
Well, this is a very good question. Unfortunately, I cannot give you an exact number of money that is required. Nowadays, to host Battlefield 2 servers that are compatible with BF2 Hub, there are several providers actually that offer this kind of service. Many are overpriced in my opinion, so the one that costs the most charges by slot. So for a full 64 server you would pay around 60 euros per month, which is a little bit insane, but that's one of the providers, for example. Or there are other providers which do not charge by slot and also offer additional benefits that other providers do not offer. Most of the providers offer like a basic server with no additional features or security protections. Instead, the one that we use offers advanced techniques to defend from some problems, which are, the topics that I hinted like 20 minutes ago. So I cannot give you like an exact number, and all the communities run different numbers of servers. We are quite in the know, and we have been doing this for a long time. So the finances are actually managed by the community leader, which founded the community with me. So then again, I do not actually have a look on the numbers.
Maybe a technical question in between. You are hosting a dedicated or a listen server, or is it really a service by someone else who actually has the server software? Is it a root server you run, or is it only really the service you require?
No, I think there are both types of servers. There are providers that will give you a game server and that's the end of it, and there are others which will give you an actual machine where you can install your servers onto. That's what we have been doing since the early stages of our community. And this is especially useful when you are looking forward to host many game servers instead of just one or two, which you would pay individually, for example.
Yeah, and you would be free of any fees depending on slots or stuff like that, and probably would be a lot more free to do modifications, stuff like that. So maybe you wouldn't have the protection services then, but at least you would have a game server. And if you think about it, 60 euros a month, that's really quite a lot of money. I'm really wondering if this is on the long run feasible at all. I mean, 60 euros a month, you can say that's 720 euros a year just for kind of a hobby project. And I'm really surprised that there are people out there who actually do this, more in a positive way, that there are people willing to spend that amount of money just for running a server.
Yes, for me it is surprising. Instead, there are hosts that still charge this amount of money for a game as old as this one. But obviously, like we mentioned with the EA, these are companies. They must make profits. So they obviously care about their incomes. So like I said, if there are hosting scene on Battlefield 2 is very variegated. So oftentimes, since I am basically everywhere in the community, you can probably find me. I get a lot of questions on how to get started, where to look for a server host, what are my options. So if there are players looking forward to host their own ranked server, because this is a huge distinction. Ranked obviously means with the statistics, with a central authority, which is a BF2 hub in this in this case, that will collect your statistics and your progress. And then there are unranked servers. Those are without statistics, and those you can modify freely. For example, instead the ranked servers must adhere to the rules of engagement. They must not be modified. So there's BF2 Hub is more strict on this type of rule set. Let's say their objective is to be as close as possible to the old standards of GameSpy and EA.
It would be very interesting if EA still gets a little bit of that money.
Yeah, that's another good question. I don't know if they have some kind of royalty from these providers. That's actually a good question, but I wouldn't know how to answer it. If they get some partial percentage from these hosting companies, that's a good question. I honestly do not know.
And by the way, I just looked it up. There are 900 guys on GOG who requested Battlefield 2 to be available on GOG as well. 900 people having this on their wish list.
Well, that's not surprising.
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm not familiar with that platform, so I'm not sure what is the interval that this number, extends. Like if it goes back some years and it's cumulative.
Yeah, I think every user can kind of place a game there, and it's just added up. But I don't believe you can place it twice there. And it says the last change was 6 hours ago or something, so it's still kind of active. But I find it interesting because there are other games which have numbers like 4,000 or something like it, and well, it's not really a low number for GOG, I believe.
Well, we can only hope. But I would say let's move on to the pros and cons. Drag, would you like to start? What are your pros of the game?
Well, the first pro that I would say is that there are many vehicles in the game that you can enjoy, and the commander role especially is well done, and so the commander can really turn the tides of the battle. And I know that in new Battlefield games this role has not always been addressed properly. Another pro I would say is the squad system, where you can squad up and talk to your squad with the VoIP, and you can spawn on the squad leader, and the squads are maximum of 6 people, and the squad leader can talk to the commander as well with the VoIP, and the commander can talk back to each squad leader. This is a communication system that, if I am not mistaken, is not implemented in newer Battlefield titles. And then what else? Well, at the moment I cannot think of other pros.
No problem. Saturn, you're next.
Well, I believe we already mentioned one of the big pluses here, and many vehicles, and including jets and including helicopters. And from that point, it's really nicely done, I believe. And I also find the mechanics interesting, as was pointed out, that the commander's role and squads and stuff like that. It's not a very dull concept, I believe. It's actually rather complex. I also believe the graphics has aged well. I mean, for today's standards, okay, it definitely looks older, but it still looks nice, I believe. And what I personally really find adorable is the sounds. I mean, if you walk around and hearing your footsteps, it's rather real, I believe. If you compare to other titles, let's say Counter-Strike or something like it, it really makes a difference for the atmosphere, what is going on in hearing your surrounding, hearing what you're doing. So it's in general rather nicely done, and of course the aspect of being able to play with a lot of players, so you're not tied to, let's say, teams 8 versus 8 or something like that, makes it also rather nice.
I have to say the big open world was always a feature I liked in this game. You had the freedom to make not one move at a special point, but you could really think from which direction I will approach this enemy position. You can flank them from everywhere. And if you can't do it, maybe air support can help you, the commander can help you. You mentioned the voice over IP system, which was amazing back then. A voice over IP system where the lone player can talk with anybody. The squad member can only talk with the squad leader, and the squad leaders can then talk additional to the commander, and the commander can only talk again only to the squad leaders. An ingenious system. Sadly, new Battlefields dropped this system completely. Also, I liked that the ranking system, which was first introduced here in this game, was very simple. It didn't feature any crazy items or weapons. It was just an addition, but it didn't hurt. If you compare it to the successor, Battlefield 2142, you had there the problem that basic items like the defibrillator was locked behind it. So you had to play many hours to revive other players, which is a stupid design, I would say.
Yes, I remember this, what you just said, because during BF2 Revive, they actually revived to 142 as well, and that's when I picked it up too. And I remember this this new concept that I had to unlock the shock paddles basically in order to revive players. Another pro that came to my mind, and that I think I've heard recently in comparison to newer titles, is the loadout system, the classes, the 7 kits that you mentioned in the beginning of the video. I'm not sure that newer titles have this amount of classes available. Probably new titles have different weapons that you can assign. Unfortunately, personally, I haven't played many new Battlefield games. I only tried Bad Company 2, so I don't know if in newer titles you have a possibility to switch your weapons, like rocket launchers or shock paddles and stuff like this. I believe no. So Battlefield 2 has this pro where there are additional classes that newer titles have scrapped or merged together. For example, in 4 core classes. Back in the day, you had 7 classes, each one with its objectives and assets in their inventory. So for me, this is a pro.
Definitely the team feeling is much bigger in Battlefield 2 than in the successors. I also only played 3 and 4. The newest one, 5 and 1, I never played. Like you mentioned, they reduced the classes to only 4 or 5, and a lot of the team feeling got lost on the way there. And of course you have the ranking system again with the problem that you have to play for 200 hours to unlock everything, which is a crazy amount for my understanding at least. Then let's go to the other side of the coin. What can you tell me about the cons of the game?
Well, like we mentioned in an earlier part of the video, the learning curve of the game is harsh. For a newcomer, it is not very easy to fight against veterans, but also the game, for example, does not have a kill cam. And for me, if I can put like a parenthesis, this is how the game is. We don't need a kill cam like in new titles. So it's neither a pro or a con, it's just how the game is. But for a newcomer perspective, or somebody that is used to new titles, to know who killed you, not having the kill cam can be a con. And so this is one of the reasons why people do not understand what is going on. The second con that comes to mind is that, again, this game has a bullet deviation system which is random, and it's a little bit awful, I might add, meaning that if you spray your gun, if you fire in bursts or full auto, your bullets will go everywhere. Your sights can be on target, you can have the best mouse movement possible, but your bullets will go to the left, to right, top, and will not hit the target unless you do something called tap firing. So you fire only one round at a time, for example. So this is one of the cons, because a new player that joins expects that when he points and shoots, the bullets are going to go there. Like in Bad Company 2, this is very real, where you point your gun, those are where the bullets are going. In Battlefield 2, the deviation is random, so the bullets are going to spread basically unpredictable manner. So this adds to the challenge of the game, but maybe from a viewer or somebody that is not used to it, it's a con, it's a disadvantage. And I had another one in mind, but it slipped, so maybe I will recall it as we go.
Well, as a complete novice player, I tend really to agree on the points of Shark, and what particularly I believe kills it for a new player is not necessarily the difficulty of the actual firing or movement or something like that. I mean, if you remember Counter-Strike 1.5 and if you have some tests back then and shot at something, it was rather common that you have some bullets stray. I believe that's okay. In CS 1.5 it was even worse. Even the first shot sometimes didn't really hit. I did test with this over a LAN connection, and we were really holding still, and you point perfectly at the head and it just didn't give you a headshot. So what I'm trying to say is here, you can be used of this, and it's quite okay. I believe this can be okay. If you know the game acts like that and you don't always hit the target perfectly, it's okay. But sometimes it's the really surprising aspects and the unfair feeling situations that you are placed in. If you think about the aspect you mentioned, that you don't need to know where someone has killed you from, where position or something like that, that would be okay. But you actually do have some kind of red-colored direction mechanism that I suppose is meant to show you where someone is attacking you from. But what I experienced is it simply does the job. It shows you, well, someone fired at you from a certain direction, but there is no player there. So also this is kind of random. And for a novice player, this can really be hard if you have no clue what did you do wrong, did you do anything wrong, were you not careful, where was someone attacking you from. This can get in the way of having fun in the sense of improving. If you have no idea how to improve, if you don't know, was it someone from behind, did the fire come from up front or something like that, it makes it difficult to improve. And as I said, there are certain situations that are really, really unfair, like the situation where you spawn and they are instantly killed by, let's say, a artillery blast or someone already sitting at your spawn point and just killing you the instant you are respawning, so there's no spawn protection at all. And this can kill your mood, if you know what I mean. You are trying to achieve something here, trying to get better, but on top of this, once you are kicked out by someone killing you, you have to wait 15 seconds to re-enter. And this really can go on your nerves if this is happening over and over again. Let's say you are playing for 5 minutes and half of the time you are simply laying around looking at the sky because you just got killed and you have no way of doing anything about it. This really, well, at least for me, that's true. This can really piss you off, I believe. And the combination of those things is a little bit hard, I believe. And I don't know if they had any, or if they could have done anything about it. Let's say giving some sort of spawn protection or or maybe do not spawn a player when there's already an artillery strike in progress at this position or something like that. I don't know. But for a new player, this really can kill the mood.
Well, I'm totally getting your point, but if you introduce a spawn protection for, say, artillery strikes on the spawn where you want to go, you would eliminate the possibility that for any random chance you survive the artillery strike and then defend the point from the other team until reinforcements can come to you. It's a little bit of the tactical aspect of the game, I would say. But I totally understand it's unfair and it's frustrating for a new player.
Yeah, frustrating is the right word. This is actually what is bothering me. If you begin with the game, those things are really frustrating. I believe the game has really nice aspects, but when you get this feeling that you are just getting kicked around the block all of the time, then this is exactly what Shark, I believe, described earlier, that people are dropping out of the game after a few hours of play because this really gets on your nerves. Not because the game itself is bad. I mean, if you are used to this, if you know what you're doing here, could be entirely fun. But for a novice player, this is really awful.
Yeah, the problem is a novice player would need a full squad of friends who keep him alive and he can learn the ropes of the game.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe some way of training with bots. If you have done with bots, you get a first impression and it's okay. And if you get someone who explains the concepts to you, that's even better. And you could learn to cope with certain problems, of course.
Yeah, and get tactics against that problem.
Yes, well, actually, to summarize a few things, this game has no single-player campaign, but you can play each map individually with bots. So you can learn the ropes there. If you want, you can start each map individually with the bots on the single-player menu. Regarding the hit, there is a hit indicator that will tell you, like you mentioned, it will tell you the direction from which the damage is coming from, but the player needs to have situational awareness of the battle in order to understand what type of fire he is receiving. Is it a sniper shot? Is it a light machine gun? Is it an explosion? Is there a vehicle nearby? The audio is very important. So the player must have the grasp of the battle, and this comes with experience. So in Battlefield 2, it's hard to get this amount of awareness when you start. And also, like you mentioned, the spawn protection is something that is not implemented in the game natively, but it's up to the server administrator to implement and use some server tools and scripts to implement, for example, base rape protection. So, for example, a player that spawns in the uncap, which is the safe zone, cannot be killed. If he is killed, the killer will be punished, for example. But picking up on the example of the artillery, well, it's always awareness. If you hear artillery shots coming down on your spawn, you do not have to spawn there. You have to hold your spawn until the artillery shower is over, then you can spawn. Obviously, it happens to me that you spawn and in that moment the shots come down. That's very unfortunate. Sometimes it's air pulling, sometimes you burst laugh.
This is what I meant. As a novice player, even if you are aware of artillery strikes, I didn't really find a way to see if an artillery strike is on the way.
Yes, no,
you may decide to spawn somewhere, and in the very same moment someone orders an artillery strike, and there's no way you can know that.
No, there is no way. There is no marker for enemy strikes. The only markers that you have on the map is for friendly strikes. So the enemy artillery is not possible to be seen. Another thing that I forgot to say is that in the single player, or even when you play multiplayer, during your first hours of the game, there will be a guide, like a voice, that will tell you.
That is actually cool. I experienced this as well, and I believe this is really a nice feature, that you get some ideas of what you can do with a certain class, like you can plant a C4 charge here or something like that. That I found really, really cool, because it skips those very often rather stupid training missions of other games where you can run through some course or something. Exactly. Here you really learn it hands-on, and this is something I actually do like. This is cool.
Yes, exactly. There is no training, mission, or tutorial for the game. You learn as you go. Literally, as soon as you activate a class or a weapon or you enter a vehicle, voice cue will be played by a commentator explaining what it can do or what buttons to press. It actually tells you press this button to do this, or you equip this. You can toggle fire mode. Will give you a lot of information only for the first time that you do that action in the game. So as you go, you learn more information. Yes, that's actually pretty cool.
Do you know of any way to reactivate this if you, by some chance, skipped certain parts of these introductions?
I believe that these introductions are, when they are played, they are marked in a configuration file, maybe the audio configuration file in the documents, I'm not sure. So one way would be to either clean this file or rename your Battlefield 2 folder.
Yeah, and then reverse engineer from there.
Yeah, but then it's a little bit harder than that because then you need to move your controls over. But there's definitely a file where these voiceovers are marked as played or not played. So if you find that file, you can clear it and they will probably play again. I have collected my thoughts. I have in mind what the other con of this game is, and unfortunately it is the net code. The network code for the game is kind of old because obviously this game has been released in 2005 and has been developed for some years, but it's not up to today's standards. So the netcode is also something that you need to grow accustomed to, and also the ping. So this is another concept that I feel very strongly that players do not understand. They look at the server browser and they sort it by player count. So they join a server and they do not know that they will be joining a server in North America or in South America, and they are in Europe, for example. So their ping will be awful, will be 120 if it's good, or 150 or 200. So that's something that you need to take into consideration when you're firing your weapons, because otherwise you fire at the model of the player, but you're not actually hitting the hitbox of the player. So your shots will not register. So this I would put this as a con, because if you don't know it, you're not hitting anybody. You need to adjust for the ping. The game does not do... The game has some latency compensation, and it has extrapolation and interpolation, but it is a very basic system. So the player also needs to add some personal knowledge, otherwise it will get hard to hit people in servers that are on the opposite side of the world, for example.
Yeah, it's a rather common problem. You have the same, for example, with the Quake-derived games. It's when you join a server with a ping of 200, then it's not fun for anyone. What I'm not sure about, I don't recollect it, does the server list show you the ping?
Yes, it does.
Well, then any experienced player should know about this.
Yeah, that's the point.
Problem.
Experienced players will look at it. I get the feeling that most of the unexperienced players are not aware of server location or even what the ping is. And so they will, like I said, the deviation is random. The netcode is not the best. It works, but it's not the best on the blog. And then there is servers hosted in America, North America, South America, Europe, even Asia now has a couple servers. So if you don't know where the server is hosted, or if you don't take a look at the ping that you get in the game, quick pro tip, the ping in the server browser usually is not the same that you will find inside the game. In the server browser, usually it is a little bit higher. So to get the actual ping, you need to join the server, and then you will see what is your actual ping looks like in the game server. But for me, new players sort the server browser by player count, and that's why Captain Sedaris told me in the beginning that he sees servers that look populated, but there's nobody on them because of the discussion of the fake clients.
It's a good point. We old players know about the concept of ping and in-game browsers.
Yes.
Yeah. I was also thinking, well, veteran or old or something like that. I mean, back then in 2000 or 2005, I believe it was really, really very common that you got to have a basic idea of ping. I mean, only really new players would ignore it altogether, but would have found out rather fast what it actually means. And I'm not sure today all this is covered by some fancy graphical interface where servers are assigned to you automatically, so you don't have to choose them at all anymore. And of course, maybe it's a question of ongoing development. I mean, the technical problem itself is still present. There's no question about that. And it is just covered a lot better than back then.
Good, then I would like to say enemy, enemy, enemy. The voice spam in this game is really... I played this game from 2005 until now, every year, basically 5 to 30 hours, and I'm still not used to this enemy, enemy, enemy. It's annoying.
Yeah, I read you. Not only that, but unfortunately, grenade spam on certain servers is still very much common practice to pick a support class and just throw grenades all day. Unfortunately, it's still something that people enjoy to do, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, it's the next point on my list. Also, for 2005, I think the viewing distance was a little bit too short. I would have preferred that at least 50 to 60% it would be more. Especially if you compare it to Project Reality or Forgotten Hope, two very good mods for the game who worked around of this problem.
I got to ask, the game itself, does it use some sort of specialized engine, or is this engine used in other games as well?
Refractor 2 is the engine behind Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 2 142. I don't know if 1942 also used it, but yeah, it's a dedicated engine that DICE used back in the day for Battlefield titles. So yeah, it is an actual engine, and the developers of Forgotten Hope 2 and Project Reality, I would say that they pretty much pushed it to the limits that there are possible with this engine.
Oh, and my last one, the menu. I hate it every time I hit escape and I have to wait for nearly half a minute to be again in the game, ready to play.
Yes, it still happens to me every now and then. I still hit escape and, well, I take a little break and then I hit escape again and I'm back into the game, hopefully still alive.
Good, then. What makes this game unique? We mentioned a lot already, but I would say it was the first Battlefield in a modern setting. We had the commander, we had the squads up to 6 people, we had a battle recorder included, so if the server allowed it, you could record the entire battle and view it from every direction, every angle you choose, which was really nice back then. A lot of good videos came that way. The good ranking system we already mentioned, the comma rows, which was also a quite nice introduction of interactive voice system to report enemy players, enemy tanks, or request backup. Then we have, of course, the voice over IP system. We already talked about this. Do you know of anything really unique?
Well, like you mentioned, the battle recorder is actually very unique to this franchise, and it helps a lot, and not only in video making but in the competitive scene as well, because competitive battles can be replayed, and it's also useful not only for that but for catching cheaters. For example, you have a complete copy of the game and the actions of the player, where he aims, what he does, where he looks. You get everything, and in a file that you can play on your computer and download after you play that match on the server. This is very unique and very useful. Another thing is perhaps some of the camera controls that some vehicles allow. Like I said, I didn't play new titles, but I believe that there is a camera called the flyby, where basically your camera will take a point in the space and will be fixed there, but it will always have your vehicle in the middle. It's like you are standing by a side of a racing track and you're driving your racing car from a remote controller. It's a very unique type of camera that I have never seen in other games. I don't play many other, so I'm not sure if it's something common, but when I first started, it was something new for me. This type of camera, which is called the flyby, used a lot in dogfighting with the jets.
You're absolutely right. It's not common in any game, I would say. And I used it a lot in many videos. I completely forgot about this. Yeah, it was nice always. So, John?
Well, I'm not sure I can add anything because my experiences are rather limited here.
Okay, then let's move on to what could a sequel do better? I would say not much. Just fix our cons and you have a basically perfect game. Of course, you can say a little bit better graphic and netcode, but this is a product of the time, I would say. Other than that, it's a very good game, a solid game.
Yes, I agree 100%. In fact, it's astonishing to see, for example, new titles like Battlefield 5 see their support plugged after a couple years, and then pair it to Battlefield 2, which is a game released 15 years ago now, which is still played, and the community is still here, thriving and supporting it and not letting it die. This game is very well done, like you said. For me, I believe it is old school, that it comes from a time when the developers really put their effort into the game, and I think especially the team that coded this game was very promising, and they had good ideas in mind that over time were lost for objectives like graphics and other topics that at the end of the day maybe interest the more casual player, and the more hardcore fans instead are not pleased, because obviously nowadays the studios have different audiences, and so the new titles are oftentimes not the same as titles like this one, like legacy titles, where everything just flows correctly and it is very good.
Yeah, it's so odd that they dropped new improvements of Battlefield 2, like the voice over IP system, the commander system. Why would you ever drop this for new Battlefield titles?
And the spectator mode as well is something that I have seen recently in other videos about comparison. The spectator is something that the Battlefield franchise has been suffering a lot in new titles, and this is also why the competitive scene of Battlefield is struggling, because it's hard to cast matches and commentate them. Whereas in Battlefield 2, the spectator can have a free camera, and player cameras, they can do pretty much whatever they want and go everywhere they want. They have no boundaries. They can do everything. It is very well done for streaming the game or streaming a match, commentating a match. This is also another feature that the game still has.
I think it's an interesting question how the developers of those titles actually would view this, because there are many games out there where developers were rather free. They were not limited by real guidelines, or maybe they had enough time to produce their ideas, to actually put them together and realize what they were thinking about. And maybe it's just the way that the publisher was pushing it, say, well, let's have it for this deadline here, and you simply couldn't do it in this time. You had the ideas, but you couldn't really finish them, and maybe this is an aspect about it. I don't know. It would be interesting to ask the developers how they saw this. What's their perspective on why did you drop the voice system, for example,
or an in-game browser.
Yeah, or ability to connect directly by IP address and port to a server. This is something that not many games do, and this is why when the support drops, it gets a little bit harder to find a server and connect to it if you don't have the server list. Battlefield 2, for example, has a little button to connect directly via IP address and port number to an internet server. This is not something that I believe new games have.
No, it really went out of style somehow, although this is pretty much what kept many games alive. I mean, if you look at older titles that also only had this lobbying system, and you cannot play them via the internet directly, you always need some VPN, and the worst part of it is if they really depend on actual master servers, which is kind of in today, that you really have no way of LAN play at all. And well, in this respect, of course, the game was great, but many of the games back then did this, so it's again something I believe got lost over time. And from my point of view, this is a rather questionable politics of the game developers and publishers. I believe this is with the sole intent that they have control over the game.
Good. Another thing done. Let's move on. Do you know of any Easter eggs?
This is a good question. I tried to think about it, and recently I've seen on Facebook some animations of the sniper class, where if you have a M95 and you look at another soldier which has this class, at some point he will put the sniper rifle in his hands and try to do lift ups with with the sniper rifle, and I've never seen it happen before. So I don't know if it's a custom animation of it. It's actually in the game, but that's a pretty good Easter egg. And secondly, I've also discovered that if you stand in certain parts of the maps for a while without moving, you will hear a specific sound based on where you are, like an animal, or for example, if you are on the railway, you will hear the whistle of a train incoming. These are all hidden features that in trivia that you don't know about. And another interesting thing that is visible in the game, though, is that there are billboards with posters and announcements. So sometimes you see partnership with Intel or logos of DICE, but other times there are pictures made by the developers with the funny lines or telephone numbers to call or propaganda for other games. Speaking of which, I'm not sure if there are remarks and Easter eggs about 2142. I'm not aware of any or any other previous games, so those would be cool. I'm not sure if there are maybe some poster or hidden model somewhere that I didn't read about.
I have to verify some. I found some in the internet, like the Battlefield 1942 poster in a hidden room. Then there is on different maps there are boxes full with teddy bears. If you detonate them, they spread out in, I say, a radius of 2 meters, and you have a lot of teddy bears on the ground.
What?
Also, there should be special points. If you throw a grenade into the water, fish will explode. So you will have a stream of fish.
I've never heard of this one before, but sounds very funny.
Yeah, grenade fishing.
I'm sure you could answer that one. There should be the problem with the AI that they will never climb a ladder. And if you do it, they will hit you with an artillery strike.
This is funny. I'm not sure if this applies to co-op or to single player, but actually I've never seen a bot climb a ladder, so that may be possible. Not sure about the artillery, but yeah, the ladder is something that is possible.
And the last one I can remember, this is true. There is a map, I can't remember the name of it, it's a long time ago, where aliens visited Battlefield 2 and made crop circles in the fields.
Yes, it actually exists. I've seen it. You are totally right. And I believe the map is called Zatar Wetlands. Next to the mech base, if you go with a chopper, you will see that there are crop signs left by aliens.
Okay. What special memories do you have?
Obviously, since I co-founded a community on this game, I have many fond memories of the previous years. Many different peoples from all over the world, mainly from Germany, also from the Netherlands, from England, also people from America, and befriending other communities, making enemies too at times, but that's part of having an environment where the game servers are run by different communities with different ideals. So some other memories that I have, like I mentioned, is helping players in the forums. I can't stress this enough, but many times I have claimed that the forum is where I spend most of my time, and that is true. So over the years, I have collected many screenshots and topics where people say thank you to me or post images that they make to say thank you or write nice things about me. So all of those are nice memories that I like to collect so that in the future I can go back and remember that specific person or that episode where maybe there was a difficult problem to solve, but over the days or weeks we managed to fix it, and so the person, I was able to make a player very happy and enjoy the game. Those are my fond memories of Battlefield 2 and helping people.
So Tuan, I guess we will skip your part.
Well, maybe only the ladders, now that you mentioned them. It's pretty much the first game where I really find using a ladder is actually really easy. In many games you have this problem that you have to be on the right side and you have to approach them properly, and here it actually simply works, I believe. So it's a rather positive experience here, something I never had with another game, I believe.
Mine would be playing for too many hours, I would say, Wake Island and Highway Tamper. Especially for Highway Tamper, there is a funny story. In 2008, I played with a friend over the internet. It was really late, reaching midnight. As usually, when you play a multiplayer shooter, many nice sentences like, his ass is mine, prepare your anus, really you asshole, you hit me. Yeah, and after playing for a long time, I realized that my window is open. I was living in the 3rd floor, and from the inner courtyard, I just could hear, could you finally shut up? It's nearly midnight.
Yes.
Also, watching this old Navy series called Jack and playing Battlefield. Watched Jack for hours and played the game is also stuck in my mind. And using the grappling hook in the expansion pack was really, this stuck with me. It's really amazing to use this strategy, to use all 3 dimensions to climb up and snipe, and if you don't want to be there any longer, use the zip line and get down there again. And coming with this point, I would also say playing a ton of mods. With Forgotten Hope 2, I learned so much about history because there was a guy called Stalker on it who played basically 24/7, and every time you were in his squad he told you about history. I guess he was a history teacher or something like that, and it was really fun to have this experience. And when we are on the modding side, did you play any mods?
Well, I did play Forgotten Hope 2. That's a very big and interesting mod, and it is still active nowadays and being developed, and so is Project Reality, which I didn't try because my computer is not as powerful, I'm afraid, but I was more interested on more simple mods to grasp. Forgotten Hope is not that simple actually, but it is very well done. Other mods that I've tried are Omnicide, so the one where you kill bot zombies, and then we've also tried some racing modifications. There's mods where you have trucks and you can race with the cars or even boats, and your time will be taken, and so you can compete with your friends around the track. That's very funny. And the other mods that I've tried oftentimes are custom maps that the community has made for special events or as part of other modifications, but which can also be played standalone. You can play the map individually, for example. If I can mention it, on ModDB there's a lot of modifications for Battlefield 2, probably around 1000 I would say. Files are up there. Not all are popular obviously or finished, but you can find a lot of mods and projects which are still active. This is also one of the features of Battlefield 2, the modding support. Not many other games do this, and the whole Battlefield franchise on the modding side is very lacking in recent years. There hasn't been mod support as much as there was for Battlefield 2.
I also played Project Reality, as mentioned, Forgotten Hope 2, but also the Stargate mod, which was really nicely done, and the AIX mod, which included many more bots and maps, even different settings. The mod pack is, I think, at least 30 or 40 maps, so you have really a ton to play. And like you said, there is still development. There is even a guy on Mod Database who tries to remaster the game. And I have to say, this engine can still look very beautiful.
Yes, I'm aware of it. It's actually a person that I know, so I know his project. I've been giving him feedback in the past years when he started. I've also played IX as well. It's a very funny mod to play with the friends against bots. Lots of content, and also one mod that I keep seeing on posted on Facebook, for example. There are groups. And there is Nations at War. I'm not sure when they started it, but it's very full of content and still actively developed. There are additional mods which I've actually learned about like in the past month, which are very promising and take inspiration from new games like Insurgency. So seeing things in the game like destructible environments and different color schemes and weapons and details and game modes is something that always surprises me in a positive way, and this is the power of the modding community for this game.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm also in this modding group on Facebook. I know them. Good. This would be the part of the video where we would open the mic to you. Do you have anything we didn't mention, anything on mind you would like to tell the community?
The first thing would be to perhaps join the game with some friends, or try to join a community that can teach you about the game and can introduce you to it, because if you want to play alone, that you have to be prepared to spend many hours to learn the game. In my opinion, it is not something that you learn in one day. Even if you have a long playing session, it will take you lots of days and hours put forward into this game to learn it. Another thing, maybe, well, we've talked about the other projects that have revived the game, but now unfortunately they have shut down. I would just say to stay in touch with our community if you want to enjoy the game together with experienced players and administrators. Lost Soldiers is always open for recruiting, and like we mentioned in the earlier section, we try to host events regularly now, so you can join those if you want to participate and know us a little bit better.
And I guess over your website is the best place to reach you guys.
Yes, our website is www.lost-soldiers.org, and that's our community website. You will be able to see if we host events, you will see if we are on our TeamSpeak servers, you will see the game servers as well, and we have forums where you can post topics, questions. There are forum games as well, or funny topics to participate into, and Discord is also a big part of our community now. We started it, I believe, in 2017, and this is where we hang out the most lately, because it's a very good platform for gamers to enjoy and arrange matches, which is sometimes the problem with games, especially in Battlefield 2, is to meet with other people on the same server, decided to play there for the night and enjoy your time together on the same server.
Okay, I would say let's end this. This will be our longest video, I guess. Shark, thank you very much for joining us. It was really nice talking with you. We wish you, of course, the best of luck for your project. Keep up the good work. And again, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys for having me, and I hope that the viewers will be satisfied. For any question, will be available to answer in the comments or on our website, or you can reach me out in Discord.
Well, that's it for this review. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, and of course, play the game. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.